Hey, what's going on, gang? This is Nate on the Stone, and welcome to this newest edition of the Rolling Stone. In case you missed last week's Rolling Stone videos, I said videos for a reason, we are no longer doing one long video for the Rolling Stone. I wish I could, but honestly, no one really wants to watch a video that's anywhere between 38 and 50 minutes long. That is good for live streaming, and I would love to live stream these. But last year, in its infinite wisdom, YouTube decided that only YouTubers with at least 1,000 subscribers can actually live stream on the platform. So this is why these videos are actual videos and not live streams. And since, like I said, no one really wants to sit down and click on a 55-minute video, I've decided that each story that we cover in these Rolling Stone videos is going to receive its own video with its own title and everything. So you can go to my channel, you can look to see which 3 stories I'm talking about, in this edition, and then if 1 or 2 stories pass your fancy, you can click on them and listen to them. You don't have to click on the whole long thing and then kind of, search to see where one story begins, where one story ends, etc. So that's the house cleaning, and if you missed it last week. So now, onward and upward to greater glory. And the first thing that we are going to start off this week is the civil war between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. A couple of months back, you probably remember, we talked about the boiling civil war on the right between the Groypers and Charlie Kirk. Well, now we're talking about the civil war on the left, the civil war that the left is having to contend with between Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. And this all really exploded last Monday, January 13th. There was a report that CNN published originally that said that in a closed-door meeting at the beginning of last year, 2019, before the presidential campaigns officially kicked off, in this closed-door meeting, Bernie Sanders told Elizabeth Warren that a woman could not beat Donald Trump in the 2020 election. When Elizabeth Warren was asked about this, she said, yes, this actually happened. Okay? Absolutely. Bernie told me that a woman had no chance of beating Donald Trump in the 2020 election. Now, Sanders denied this. He was quoted in the LA Times as saying, in response to this charge, quote, "It is ludicrous to believe that at the same meeting where Elizabeth Warren told me she was going to run for president, I would tell her that a woman couldn't win. It's sad that 3 weeks before the Iowa caucus and a year after that private conversation, staff who weren't in the room are lying about what happened. Do I believe a woman can win in 2020? Of course. After all, Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump by 3 million votes in 2016. Of course, however, because, this is an election year and we are now getting down to the brass tacks, Warren responded by basically saying that Sanders is lying about this. She completely rejected his rebuttal to this original story, saying, quote, "Among the topics that came up was what would happen if Democrats nominated a female candidate. I thought a woman could win. He disagreed. I have no interest in discussing this private meeting any further because Bernie and I have far more in common than our differences on punditry." Unquote. Okay, now, Bernie Sanders is absolutely right in this case that it is very interesting that this story only dropped, a year after he supposedly said these things, and only 3 weeks out from the Iowa caucuses, As you guys probably know, the Iowa caucuses they're pretty important in presidential elections, not because Iowa is worth more electoral votes than any other states or anything like that, but because Iowa has its caucuses first. They choose which candidates they would like to see as presidential nominees. And so whoever wins the Iowa caucus kind of has, a leg up on all of his rivals. It's perfectly possible for someone who has won the Iowa caucus to still not be the nominee, but it kind of gives them a sense of not entitlement, but it gives them a sense of justification. That's a good word for it. It gives them a sense of justification. Since they won the very first caucus, it kind of gives them steam for the future caucuses because, hey, everyone likes, winners. And so, hey, this guy won. These people liked him over here. Well, I'm more inclined now to vote for him, especially since if the candidate you really were pulling for dropped out before the Iowa caucus. So it is very, very interesting that, like Bernie said, only 3 weeks outside before the Iowa caucuses, this story would drop, especially when you take into consideration that new polling, shows Sanders actually leading the Democratic presidential candidates in Iowa. Bernie is actually the favored Democratic presidential candidate in Iowa. And national polls actually have him second, only to Joe Biden. Joe Biden is still leading the pack. Bernie comes second, and Elizabeth Warren comes a very close third. So there is definitely the smell of opportunistic story dropping, or even, as we might say, story creating. Because again, Bernie denies that this ever happened, okay? Now, this in and of itself would probably be enough to create rifts between Warren supporters and Sanders supporters, but something else happened. Okay, like I said, this story dropped last Monday, January 13th. The day after that, Tuesday, January 14th, was another Democratic presidential debate, okay? That was actually hosted and run by CNN. Okay, CNN was running the show. They were hosting the debate, and they were the moderators. They were there on the panel. CNN commentators, they were asking the questions. They were keeping order, etc., etc. And during that presidential debate, I can't even describe it, gang. I've got to show you. So, even though we usually don't play a lot of clips here on the Rolling Stones, I'm breaking that rule again. This is what happened at the Democratic presidential debate last Tuesday, January 14th. Go.
Senator Sanders, I do want to be clear here. You're saying that you never told Senator Warren that a woman could not win the election.
That is correct.
Senator Warren, what did you think when Senator Sanders told you a woman could not win the election?
I disagreed. Bernie is my friend, and I am not here to try to fight with Bernie. But look, this question about whether or not a woman can be president has been raised, and it's time for us to attack it head on. And I think the best way to talk about who can win is by looking at people's winning record. So, can a woman beat Donald Trump? Look at the men on this stage. Collectively, they have lost 10 elections. The only people on this stage who have won every single election that they've been in are the women, Amy and me.
I told you. You've got to see it to believe it. CNN asking Bernie Sanders point blank, did you tell Elizabeth Warren that she couldn't win the election? Bernie, absolutely not. Senator Warren, how did you respond when Senator Sanders said that a woman couldn't win the presidential election? I mean, sheer, unadulterated bias right there. Not only in front of all the candidates, but in front of the entire nation on a silver platter. And I've just got to say, I just love Bernie's expression. Like, jeez Louise, people, I can't believe that you're doing this. Or maybe he can believe it and he's just laughing at, the corruption of it all. I don't know. Now, this unadulterated example of bias on the part of CNN is what really, really got this civil war between Elizabeth Warren supporters and Bernie Sanders supporters rolling, okay? So, for example, Rolling Stone's Matt Taibbi tweeted, This is an unusually vile performance by CNN. The Nation's Eli Mistel raged, Jesus Christ, I hate these biased questions from the moderators. How would you keep your plan from bankrupting the country? Just ask the Koch brothers to moderate next time. HuffPost's Zach Carter griped about CNN's post-debate panel discussion, saying CNN's crew is just straight bashing Sanders post-debate. The New Republic's Libby Watson whined, CNN is truly a terrible influence on this country. And all of this led to the creation of a hashtag on Twitter, because as we know, everything of importance eventually ends up as a hashtag on Twitter. Never Warren. Okay? Never Warren. And this is actually at the root of this civil war, because this goes deeper than Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. This even goes deeper than whether there is bias in CNN or in the regular mainstream media. You know, this goes deeper than this. This goes to a question that the left has been having to struggle with. And really, it's been struggling with it since the beginning of 2019. Really, ever since we knew the midterm election results of 2018, when AOC, Ilhan Omar, the Squad, and the rest of those, freshman congressmen won their seats. And the question is this: is the party going to be, or is the progressive movement going to be pragmatic? Or is it going to just go full force ideological? Okay? And there are a couple of things that I take away from this. First of all, I think that the left is really having its 2016 moment. If you remember in 2016, the age-old question that people are still, even today, going on 4 years after the event, they are still asking themselves this question: why did Donald Trump win? And a big part of the answer is that a lot of people on the right were hungry for something of substance. Now, we could sit here and debate all day whether, Trump actually has substance, but the point is, for our purposes right here, is that during that 2016 campaign, right, from when he announced his candidacy in 2015, all through 2016 until he won, he presented himself as a man of substance. He was the one who said the things that no other Republican candidate was supposed to say, or even that people thought they could get away and say it. Because if you said it, oh my God, you might as well kiss your campaign and any chance of getting to the White House. Goodbye, you've shot yourself in the foot and hanged yourself simultaneously. Right? And that's why people flocked to him. That's why he won the nomination. And ultimately, I think that's why, a big reason why he won the 2016 election, because people, correctly or wrongly, thought that he had substance. He was talking about issues that mattered to them. And he was actually saying things that resonated with them. The left is in the same position here. They are looking for something of substance. Okay? They are looking for substance. They don't want pragmatism anymore. I think that they feel that the culture is on their side, and they are unfortunately 100% right about that. So now they want ideological purity in the party as well. They're saying, no more masks, no more fake tolerance, none of these things. We have said, or people have implied, that Trump supporters, people on the right, they are Nazis, they are right-wingers, they are fascists, they are dictatorial, they are authoritarians. Therefore, let's just tear off the mask and say what we all think. Let's be honest and let's run on that. Let's run on unabashed socialism, Green New Deal, free college debt forgiveness, all of those things, okay? And let's just run pell-mell for it. Proudly embrace the moniker of socialist. And it's telling, in this, that even someone like Barack Obama is being left behind. If you remember last year, a couple of months ago, Barack Obama actually came out and gave a warning saying that, progressive candidates, you can't be too progressive, you can't be too ideologically pure, because, it's politics, right? So in this environment, in this atmosphere, where even Barack Obama is now being seen as too moderate. You know, not only that the progressive movement has gone even further left than when he was in office, but that now they are tired of playing games. They want everything laid out on the board. Honestly, I wouldn't mind if that happened either. I mean, sure, if this is going to come to a fight, metaphorical or any other ways, let's actually say, yes, let's have those lines drawn quite clearly. Okay? And there's a good reason for this desire for purity. Okay? And that comes back to the CNN. And there's actually a good reason for this desire for purity. And that desire, that good reason comes back to this CNN debacle that we saw, okay? People on the left know that Bernie Sanders has an uphill battle. They know, for example, that the party doesn't like him, that the higher ups, they don't like him, even though he is tremendously popular with people who lean to the left, especially among millennials and Gen Zers. The party bigwigs, they don't like him because they don't think, for whatever reason, that he could actually face off against someone like Trump in the national election. So they're trying to hedge their bets. That's one reason why in the 2016 election, right, when before the Democratic primaries made Hillary Clinton their candidate, Donna Brazile was actually leaking debate questions to Hillary Clinton so she could have a leg up. She could prepare, right, and outperform Bernie Sanders synthetically. So this example from the Democratic debate that happened last week is just another example for them as to why they need ideological purity, because in that way they can purge themselves of people like CNN, purge themselves from the kingmakers, as it were, and just allow the candidate that the people or the Democrat voters or the leftist voters want to actually win the nomination. And there's something else that this story really, really shows. And in one sense, this affects all of us. Okay, the leftist civil war, that doesn't affect us immediately right now. It will eventually. It will eventually. Because unfortunately, gang, what I've got to tell you is that the left is not going to eat itself. I think I've said before, I cannot count how many times people have been so giddy saying the left is eating itself, the left is going to eat itself, where's the popcorn, this is going to be so glorious to watch, and then you know what, it never happens. The left is more like a hydra, or if you want to put it in more common pop culture references, it's like King Ghidorah, right? The three-headed golden monster like we saw last year in Godzilla King of the Monsters, and all these different heads, except it has more than 3 heads, and all these heads are just fighting as to which head is going to lead the body, okay? So it'll snap at each other, it'll bite itself, but it's never going to eat itself. It never will. They are just deciding the pecking order that's going to happen. Okay? But this other point affects all of us, because what we are seeing is Elizabeth Warren hiding behind intersectionality. Okay? She is hiding behind the fact that she is a woman. Okay? She is ultimately saying, I'm a woman who was attacked. That's why you should vote for me. Because mean old Bernie Sanders over here said that a woman couldn't win the election. A woman has no chance of beating Donald Trump. That makes him sexist. That makes him a heretic for us on the left. And you can't vote for heretics. In a weird way, she is actually engaging in ideological purity just as much as Bernie Sanders supporters, come to think of it. But that's one way that she's hiding behind intersectionality. Another way is saying that you cannot question my story. Okay? So even though Bernie Sanders has vehemently denied that he ever said what he is accused of saying to Warren, and even though people on the left, okay, not on the right, people on the left have said, you know what, Elizabeth Warren has a history of inflating stories. I mean, take a look at this. This is the woman who lied about her ethnicity, about being a Cherokee Indian, to get a job at Harvard. This is the woman who lied, okay, to the faces of actual people, saying that she had never sent her son to a private school when she has sent her son to a private school. This is the woman who lied about her dad being a janitor, okay? This is a woman who has lied both inside and outside the presidential campaign when she thinks that lying is going to actually benefit her, okay? But despite all of that, hiding behind this intersectionality, Elizabeth Warren is saying, no. This is what I am saying. You must believe me, okay? Here was something actually I saw on Twitter. Julia Loff of GQ said, quote, "Still thinking about the Warren-Bernie squabble, and I have a question to people who have accused Warren of lying. Isn't the lesson of #MeToo in the last few years that we believe women and don't call them liars?" Okay? So these are the new rules that are being set up, okay? From now on, you can't actually use your brain and use your eyes and your ears to see that a candidate is lying, or to say that a candidate has lied, or to realize that a candidate has lied. No, if a candidate marks off any of the checkpoints of intersectionality, whether the candidate is a woman, or is biracial, or is Hispanic, or is gay, or is bisexual, or is transgender, or etc., or a biracial trans woman who identifies now as a dragon, you cannot question anything that they say. We must all sheep-like follow whatever they say, because we're not supposed to question them, right? Because the patriarchy has oppressed them so much that the Me Too movement is finally giving them their freedom, and so we must believe them. Otherwise, we are complicit in helping the patriarchy in keeping these people silent. Never mind about their qualifications, never mind about their experience, never mind, again, about the facts and the truth. Truth now is completely irrelevant, okay? All that matters is someone's identity. That is now, and that's the scary thing here, that self-government, that everything is going to boil down to how you identify. And the people who identify as the right things, they are going to be rewarded, whether that's in the culture, in entertainment, or in politics. Well, guess what? You can't have a self-governing society based on that. That immediately creates a caste system with the Brahmins on top and then everyone else, the untouchables, at the bottom. That's ultimately the last and most terrifying thing that the Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren civil war shows us. That is story number one.